Shedeur Sanders-to-Browns was not happening until this moment. Cleveland Browns owner Jimmy Haslam has faced speculation that he pushed general manager Andrew Berry and head coach Kevin Stefanski to draft quarterback Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, despite the team already selecting quarterback Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round of the 2025 NFL Draft. During his news conference Tuesday, Haslam addressed the decision to take Sanders. When asked about his thoughts on hearing the narrative that he was the one who pushed for Sanders, Haslam pointed to Berry, stating it was his decision to get him. "We have a good process," Haslam said. "If you'd have told me driving home Friday night that you all are going to pick Shedeur, I would say that's not happening. But we had a conversation early that morning, and then we had a conversation later that day. I think we had the right people involved in the conversation. At the end of the day, that's Andrew Berry's call. Andrew made the call to pick Shedeur, just like who's going to start or what play we're going to call is Kevin's call. But that's Andrew's call." Haslam also praised Sanders and Gabriel for how well they have adjusted to the NFL early in their careers. "I know everybody has a vision of Shedeur, but he's come in the building, worked hard, kept his head down, and done what he's supposed to do, as has Dillon, which was no surprise for either of them." Sanders was projected to go in the first 2 rounds of the draft but surprisingly slid down the board, having to wait until the 144th pick to hear his name called. Sanders, along with Gabriel, Joe Flacco, and Kenny Pickett, have been fighting for the starting quarterback job. Pickett recently suffered a hamstring injury, and Sanders has been working with the third-team offense. Sanders' father, Deion Sanders, spoke to Michael Irvin on Monday and said Sanders was looking forward to the preseason games to show off what he could do on the field. "He's like, I've got work to do, and I'm going to put in this work," Sanders said Shedeur told him. "One thing they're going to have to do is let me play. When preseason comes, watch me work. I'm like, I already know what you're going to do. I'm not worried about that." Shiloh was totally the opposite. He said, "Come on down there," and he was happy. "Thank you for relying on us to provide the journalism you can trust. Please consider supporting us with a subscription." Chris Franklin may be reached at cfranklin@njadvancemedia.com. If you purchase a product or register for an account through a link on our site, we may receive compensation. By using this site, you consent to our user agreement and agree that your clicks, interactions, and personal information may be collected, recorded, and/or stored by us and social media and other third-party partners in accordance with our privacy policy. For months, the name Shedeur Sanders danced around NFL draft boards like smoke, visible, but untouchable. The Cleveland Browns scouts had watched his tape, sure. But deep down in Berea, Ohio, no one really thought they'd land the Colorado star. In fact, the buzz inside the building was clear. It's not happening. And yet, something changed. A moment, quiet and almost cinematic, shifted the course of Shedeur Sanders' football destiny. It was the final week of private prospect interviews. The Browns' front office was tired. GM Andrew Berry had sat through a dozen quarterback interviews in as many days. Kevin Stefanski's voice was worn out from breaking down film clips with 20-something-year-old kids who all wanted to be the next big thing. And yet, Shedeur's time slot was still penciled in, almost as a courtesy, a formality. Everyone assumed he'd go earlier than the Browns' projected range, maybe even in the late 2nd or early 3rd round. Cleveland didn't have a pick until the 5th. Still, he walked in, calm, hoodie over his head, smile barely peeking through the confidence on his face. Shedeur shook hands with everyone in the room. No PR team. No flashy entourage. Just him. Just that Sanders swagger. They watched his Colorado film together. Berry asked about protections. Stefanski asked about defensive reads. Sanders answered everything, not just with the right terminology, but with something rare, conviction. Then he said something that froze the room. "You don't need me. You got veterans. But if you ever want someone who'll change the way your quarterback room works from the inside out, who ain't scared of the weather, the pressure, or the ghosts in this city, I'll be ready. And when I get my shot, I'm not letting it go." It wasn't cocky. It was truth. That was the moment. The room fell quiet. Stefanski scribbled a note and passed it to Berry. It said, "We need to find a way." From that day on, Shedeur Sanders became a Browns target. Not a public one, not one for the mock drafts or the media, but a real one. The Browns brass knew the odds were long. Shedeur had too much talent. His name was too big. And even if other teams were scared off by his nil fame or Deion's looming shadow, someone would take him. But they waited. And waited. Day 3 of the draft came. The 5th round ticked by. Teams filled needs. Quarterbacks were falling. The Browns' war room got tense. Then came pick number 156. The final name before the Browns. The Denver Broncos were on the clock. Phones buzzed. Rumors swirled. Denver needed a developmental QB. Shedeur was still there. But then they took a linebacker. A linebacker. Cleveland had 5 minutes. And when the NFL draft jingle hit and the card was announced, a wave of disbelief rippled through fans across the country. With the 157th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select quarterback Shedeur Sanders, Colorado. The internet exploded. Analysts scrambled to re-evaluate their boards. Social media erupted in fire emojis and bold takes. But inside the Browns facility, it was calm. Because they knew. They had seen something the others hadn't. Or maybe, more accurately, they believed something the others had doubted. Fast forward to training camp. Sanders wasn't promised anything. In fact, he arrived at minicamp behind veterans like Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel. But he stayed after practice. Studied harder. Asked questions. One coach joked, he's like a young Russell Wilson, but with a TikTok account. By week 3 of camp, Shedeur was taking second-team representatives. By week 5, he was splitting time with the ones. And after a preseason scrimmage where he dropped a 65-yard bomb followed by a 2-minute drive that had the crowd roaring, there was no more ignoring it. Looking back, insiders say the Browns were never planning to take a quarterback that year. Their board was focused on O-line depth and secondary help. But that one interview, that one moment in a quiet meeting room, changed everything. That's when Shedeur Sanders became more than Deion's son. More than a nil superstar. He became a Brown, not just in uniform, but in spirit. Because Cleveland didn't just need a quarterback.